In the ranks of the Straw Hat Pirates, there are many unique personalities and characters. There's a sniper who excels at a tactical retreat, a musician skeleton that has an afro, and a cyborg that basically embodies the very idea of America.
Super! That's how it's done!
I mean, he's powered by cola. Can you get more American than that?
I think not!
Now, among all these personalities, you will also find the swordsman, Roronoa Zoro. He's a samurai, who's a pirate, who fights with 3 swords, 1 in each hand, and 1 in his mouth. I can't think of anything more unnecessarily cool than that. But, of course, cool is not what we're here to find. We're here to find power. And with the help of some math and geology, that's just what we're going to do. We are going to find the physical power of Roronoa Zoro. Hello Internet, Jojo here, and welcome to Idea Shock. So, after my last video on Luffy, check that out if you have not, I'm actually pretty proud of that one, I really felt the need to talk about other characters that had power near the same level. But, of course, to no one's surprise, there are actually very few feats that support this. However, that's not to say that there are no feats that are this powerful. In fact, Zoro just recently had a major power-up that puts him near the same level as Luffy, and that power-up has led us to where we are today. Because Zoro has such an outlandish fighting style, you know, with the 3 swords and all, you would be correct to assume that he's done some outlandish things. And of all the things he's done in the vast length of time that he's been in One Piece, his strongest feat to date comes from the current story arc, or if you're from the future, the Wano story arc. During this arc, Zoro acquired a new sword to replace his previous sword, Shusui, that he had acquired from the legendary samurai Ryuma. This new sword that Zoro got goes with the name Enma, and Enma is described as being able to cut through the depths of hell, which is a really cool description. But on top of that, this sword previously belonged to the Hercules-inspired legend Kozuki Oden, and is one of the only 2 weapons to have ever left a scar on the pirate emperor Kaido. One of the main things that happens when Zoro gets his blade is that it attempts to absorb his haki, H-A-K-I, not H-O-C-K-A-Y. Zoro then scolds the blade and gives it back.
Now put that thing back where it came from, or so help me!
Now, the very first thing that Zoro does after he got a hold of Enma is give it a little test swing by attempting to cut a tree. Fortunately, or unfortunately depending on how you look at it, this test swing ended up being so powerful that it cut the entire coastline of the island and launched it into the sea. Now, finding the needed information is a bit difficult, but we can get pretty close. The first thing we need to do is to find what we will be using as a ruler in this panel, and luckily we have these trees here for our use. These trees are most likely Japanese black pine trees, and a Japanese black pine tree can grow to a mature height of 38.1 meters tall. So compare the trees to the cut, and we end up with this cut having a depth of about 196 meters. But after this is where it gets more complex. You see, we only have this panel, and this only shows a side view. However, we can still find the cut's length by looking at the map. A quick look at this map, and it's clear the only landmark here is this mountain. So, because the mountain is called Mount Fuji and the fact that Wano is based off ancient Japan, we're going to assume that this mountain is the same height as the real Mount Fuji. It's a bit difficult to find which part of the island Zoro cut, but we know that Zoro made this cut in the forest near Amagasa village, so it's probably this lower part of the island. Drawing a circle to outline the curve of the island and applying the real Mount Fuji's height of 3,776 meters to it, we find this circle has a chord length of 1,963 meters. For those of you who care, this is the chord of a circle. It is a horizontal line that stretches from one end of the circle to the other. There are many different ways to find this, but what I did was I found the radius of the main circle and then applied the distance from the edge where the cut started, giving us a length of 1,963 meters. With all these numbers, we can find this cut had an area of 303,500 square meters. With the ultimate shear strength of limestone being around 50 megapascals, we find that Zoro had to have cut with about 15.174 trillion newtons of force, or over 17 billion tons of force. If we apply the cut's length to displace the force, and this feat ends up being worth 7,122 kilotons of TNT. But of course, that's not all there is to this feat. As you can see, the cut segment of the island flies into the ocean, and this adds a relevant amount of energy to the final number. Measuring the segment and applying the density of limestone per cubic meter, and this segment comes to be about 52.45 billion kilograms. This is the weight of 10 Great Pyramids. Measuring the distance that this traveled to be 76.79 meters, and the time that it took for it to travel this distance, one panel, or 0.375 seconds, and this must have been moving at 458 miles per hour, or a little bit more than half the speed of sound. Accounting for acceleration, 546 meters per second squared, and we get 28.6453 trillion newtons of force. Displacing that force over the 76.79 meters that it flew, and this energy comes to be about 525.73 kilotons of TNT. Adding the two energy results together, and we end up with Zoro having produced 7,648 kilotons of TNT. Now, this is a lot of energy. Like, a lot of energy. But this was only when Zoro was putting out enough effort to cut a tree. Just imagine what he could do if he put out the same effort that he did when he cut Pika in half. Spoiler alert, you don't have to imagine it because I'm going to tell you. Japanese black pine trees have a trunk diameter of about 1 to 2 meters, but the tree that Zoro probably cut appears to be on the thinner side. So, using a diameter of 1 meter, and this tree has a cross-sectional area of 3.14 square meters. Using wood's shear strength of 10 megapascals and its diameter as displacement, we find to cut this tree requires 31.4 million joules. Dividing the actual power produced by the effort Zoro was intending to put into the cut, and we find that Enma multiplied his power by about 1.019 billion times. Now, you know how on Death Battle Zoro vs. Urza fight, they calculated this Pika cut to be at 11 megatons of TNT? Assuming that he put that much effort into this attack, and Enma would increase his output to 11,209 teratons of TNT, or 11.2 petatons. This means that he could cut the Death Star in half 63 times. The small Death Star from New Hope. Not the monster from Return of the Jedi. That one's considerably bigger. Anyways, while this is a departure from yield megatons of TNT that most people thought was Zoro's max, this energy actually lines up quite nicely with what we calculated Luffy's power to be when he first revealed Bound Man in the Dressrosa arc. But that's only if you use the manga. If you looked at the movies, this power spikes dramatically. Before I forget, which I do quite a bit, if you're new to the channel and you like this stuff, then you definitely want to subscribe. I don't think you'll regret it. What you will regret is not liking this video. So do that too. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. In One Piece Stampede, Zoro briefly goes up against the Marine Admiral Fujitora, but then has to stop fighting because, you know, Fujitora does what Fujitora does, and drops a meteor on the island and leaves Zoro to deal with it. Zoro runs up to it and then cuts it in half, negating all its kinetic energy. Just so you know guys, I really like meteor cutting feats, they're just really cool. Anyways, by comparing the cut meteor to this galleon, galleons are about 160 feet long on average, we get a diameter that we can use to find the radius, which we can use to find that it has a weight of about 478.8 billion kilograms. Meteors will typically move anywhere from Mach 32 to Mach 208, but considering that Fujitora doesn't really play around when he starts using his powers, we can assume this rock is in the faster percentile. So, a rock this large and this fast would have a kinetic energy of almost 300 gigatons of TNT, or more accurately, 292 gigatons. If we take the amount of effort that Zoro output to stop this meteor and apply it to Enma's increase in his power, we find that Zoro should be in spitting distance of 300 exatons of TNT. Now, due to the fact that Eiichiro Oda, the creator of One Piece, had a major role in almost every aspect of this movie, it was the celebration of One Piece's 20th anniversary after all, I do consider this to be as close to canon as you can get without actually being in the manga. Even more than the anime is, because, you see, the anime is an interpretation of the manga, but a movie is its own unique thing. So, there you have it, the greatest physical power of Roronoa Zoro. Before we end here today, I'm curious to see what you guys think of this shorter video format where I only cover one feat or attribute of any given character. In all honesty, the videos where I cover 4 feats almost always turn out to be more work than they're worth, so I'm trying different things and seeing what sticks. So far I really like how this video is going, it just feels better, I guess. I have a lot more to say than that, but I'll save that for later. As always guys, thanks for watching, see you next time, remember to stay spectacular, JoJo, out.
一大三千大戦世界